The Mughal Empire or Mughal Empire, self-designated as Gurkhani, was an empire based in the Indian subcontinent, established and ruled by a Muslim Persianate dynasty of Chagatai Turco-Mongol origin that extended over large parts of the Indian subcontinent and Afghanistan. The beginning of the empire is conventionally dated to the founder Babur's victory over Ibrahim Lodi, the last ruler of the Delhi Sultanate in the First Battle of Panipat. During the reign of Humayun, the successor of Babur, the empire was briefly interrupted by the Sur Empire. The classic period of the Mughal Empire started in 1556 with the ascension of Akbar the Great to the throne. Under the rule of Akbar and his son Jahangir, the region enjoyed economic progress as well as religious harmony, and the monarchs were interested in local religious and cultural traditions. Akbar was a successful warrior. He also forged alliances with several Hindu Rajput kingdoms. Some Rajput kingdoms continued to pose a significant threat to the Mughal dominance of northwestern India, but most of them were subdued by Akbar. All Mughal emperors were Muslims, while Akbar was Muslim most of his life. He followed a new religion in the latter part of his life called Deen-i-Ilahi, as recorded in historical books like Ain-i-Akbari and Dabstani-Mazaheb. The Mughal Empire did not try to intervene in the local societies during most of its existence, but rather balanced and pacified him through new administrative practices and diverse and inclusive ruling elites, leading to more systematic, centralized, and uniform rule. Newly coherent social groups in northern and western India, such as the Marathas, the Rajputs, the Pashtuns, the Hindu Jats and the Sikhs, gained military and governing ambitions during Mughal rule, which, through collaboration or adversity, gave them both recognition and military experience. The reign of Shah Jahan, the fifth emperor, between 1628 to 58 was the golden age of Mughal architecture. He erected several large monuments, the best known of which is the Taj Mahal at Agra, as well as the Moti Masjid, Agra, the Red Fort, the Jama Masjid, Delhi, and the Lahore Fort. The Mughal Empire reached the zenith of its territorial expanse during the reign of Aurangzeb and also started its terminal decline in his reign due to Maratha military resurgence under Shivaji Bhosle. During his lifetime, victories in the south expanded the Mughal Empire to more than 3.2 million square kilometers, ruling over more than 150 million subjects, nearly one-quarter of the world's population at the time, with a combined GDP of over $90 billion. By the mid-18th century, the Marathas had routed Mughal armies, and won over several Mughal provinces from the Punjab to Bengal, and internal dissatisfaction arose due to the weakness of the Mughal Empire's administrative and economic systems, leading to the breakup of the empire and declaration of independence of its former provinces by the Nawab of Bengal, the Nawab of Awadh, the Nizam of Hyderabad and other small states. In 1739, the Mughals were crushingly defeated in the Battle of Karnal by the forces of Nader Shah, the founder of the Afsharid dynasty in Persia, and Delhi was sacked and looted, drastically accelerating their decline. During the following century, Mughal power had become severely limited and the last emperor, Bahadur Shah II, had authority over only the city of Shahjahanabad. He issued a firman supporting the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and following the defeat was therefore tried by the British East India Company for treason, imprisoned and exiled to Rangoon. The last remnants of the empire were formally taken over by the British, and the Government of India Act 1858 let the British Crown formally assume direct control of India in the form of the new British Raj. Etymology. Contemporaries referred to the empire founded by Babur as the Timurid Empire, which reflected the heritage of his dynasty, and was the term preferred by the Mughals themselves. In the West, the term Mughal was used for the emperor, and by extension, the empire as a whole. The use of Mughal, deriving from the Arabic and Persian corruption of Mongol, and emphasizing the Mongol origins of the Timurid dynasty, gained currency during the 19th century, but remains disputed by Indologists. Similar terms had been used to refer to the empire, including Mughal and Maf'ul. Nevertheless, Babur's ancestors were sharply distinguished from the classical Mongols insofar as they were oriented towards Persian rather than Turco-Mongol culture. History. The Mughal Empire was founded by Babur, a Central Asian ruler who was descended from the Turco-Mongol conqueror Timur on his father's side and from Chagatai, the second son of the Mongol ruler Genghis Khan, on his mother's side. Ousted from his ancestral domains in Central Asia, Babur turned to India to satisfy his ambitions. He established himself in Kabul and then pushed steadily southward into India from Afghanistan through the Khyber Pass. Babur's forces occupied much of northern India after his victory at Panipat in 1526. The preoccupation with wars and military campaigns, however, did not allow the new emperor to consolidate the gains he had made in India. The instability of the empire became evident under his son, Humayun, who was driven out of India and into Persia by rebels. Humayun's exile in Persia established diplomatic ties between the Safavid and Mughal courts, and led to increasing Persian cultural influence in the Mughal Empire. The restoration of Mughal rule began after Humayun's triumphant return from Persia in 1555, but he died from a fatal accident shortly afterwards. Humayun's son, Akbar, succeeded to the throne under a regent, Bahram Khan, who helped consolidate the Mughal Empire in India. Through warfare and diplomacy, Akbar was able to extend the empire in all directions and controlled almost the entire Indian subcontinent north of the Godavari River. He created a new class of nobility loyal to him from the military aristocracy of India's social groups, implemented a modern government, and supported cultural developments. At the same time, Akbar intensified trade with European trading companies. India developed a strong and stable economy, leading to commercial expansion and economic development. Akbar allowed free expression of religion, and attempted to resolve socio-political and cultural differences in his empire by establishing a new religion, Din-i-Ilahi, with strong characteristics of a ruler cult. He left his successors an internally stable state, which was in the midst of its golden age. But before long signs of political weakness would emerge. Akbar's son, Jahangir, ruled the empire at its peak, but he was addicted to opium, neglected the affairs of the state, and came under the influence of rival court cliques. During the reign of Jahangir's son, Shah Jahan, the culture and splendor of the luxurious Mughal court reached its zenith as exemplified by the Taj Mahal. The maintenance of the court, at this time, began to cost more than the revenue. Shah Jahan's eldest son, the liberal Dara Shikoh, became regent in 1658, as a result of his father's illness. However, a younger son, Aurangzeb, allied with the Islamic orthodoxy against his brother, who championed a syncretistic Hindu-Muslim culture, and ascended to the throne. Aurangzeb defeated Dara in 1659 and had him executed. Although Shah Jahan fully recovered from his illness, Aurangzeb declared him incompetent to rule and had him imprisoned. During Aurangzeb's reign, the empire gained political strength once more, but his religious conservatism and intolerance undermined the stability of Mughal society. Aurangzeb expanded the empire to include almost the whole of South Asia, but at his death in 1707, many parts of the empire were in open revolt. Aurangzeb's son, Shah Alam, repealed the religious policies of his father, and attempted to reform the administration. However, after his death in 1712, the Mughal dynasty sank into chaos and violent feuds. In 1719 alone, 4 emperors successively ascended the throne. During the reign of Muhammad Shah, the empire began to break up, and vast tracts of central India passed from Mughal to Maratha hands. The far-off Indian campaign of Nadir Shah, who had priorly re-established Iranian suzerainty over most of West Asia, the Caucasus, and Central Asia, culminated with the sack of Delhi and shattered the remnants of Mughal power and prestige. Many of the empire's elites now sought to control their own affairs, and broke away to form independent kingdoms. But, according to Shugat Bose i.e. Shah Jalal, the Mughal emperor, however, continued to be the highest manifestation of sovereignty. Not only the Muslim gentry, but the Maratha, Hindu, and Sikh leaders took part in ceremonial acknowledgements of the emperor as the sovereign of India. The Mughal emperor Shah Alam II made futile attempts to reverse the Mughal decline, and ultimately had to seek the protection of outside powers, i.e., from the Emir of Afghanistan, Ahmed Shah Abdali, which led to the Third Battle of Panipat between the Maratha Empire and the Afghans led by Abdali in 1761. In 1771, the Marathas recaptured Delhi from Afghan control, and in 1784 they officially became the protectors of the emperor in Delhi, a state of affairs that continued further until after the Third Anglo-Maratha War. Thereafter, the British East India Company became the protectors of the Mughal dynasty in Delhi. The British East India Company took control of the former Mughal province of Bengal, Bihar in 1793 after it abolished local rule that lasted until 1858, marking the beginning of British colonial era over the Indian subcontinent. By 1857 a considerable part of the former Mughal India was under East India's Company's control. After a crushing defeat in the War of 1857 to 1858 which he nominally led, the last Mughal, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was deposed by the British East India Company and exiled in 1858. Through the Government of India Act 1858, the British Crown assumed direct control of East India Company-held territories in India in the form of the new British Raj. In 1876, the British Queen Victoria assumed the title of Empress of India. Explanations for the decline. Historians have offered numerous explanations for the rapid collapse of the Mughal Empire between 1707 and 1720. After a century of growth and prosperity, in fiscal terms the throne lost the revenues needed to pay its chief officers, the emirs and their entourages. The emperor lost authority, as the widely scattered imperial officers lost confidence in the central authorities, and made their own deals with local men of influence. The imperial army, bogged down in long, futile wars against the more aggressive Marathas, lost its fighting spirit. Finally, came a series of violent political feuds over control of the throne. After the execution of Emperor Farrukh Shah in 1719, local Mughal successor states took power in region after region. Contemporary chroniclers bewailed the decay they witnessed, a theme picked up by the first British historians who wanted to underscore the need for a British-led rejuvenation. Since the 1970s, historians have taken multiple approaches to the decline, with little consensus on which factor was dominant. The psychological interpretations emphasized depravity in high places, excessive luxury, and increasingly narrow views that left the rulers unprepared for an external challenge. A Marxist school emphasizes excessive exploitation of the peasantry by the rich, which stripped away the will and the means to support the regime. Karen Leonard has focused on the failure of the regime to work with Hindu bankers, whose financial support was increasingly needed. The bankers then helped the Maratha and the British. In a religious interpretation, some scholars argue that the Hindu Rajputs revolted against Muslim rule. Finally, other scholars argue that the very prosperity of the empire inspired the provinces to achieve a high degree of independence, thus weakening the imperial court. List of Mughal emperors. Influence on South Asia. South Asian art and culture. A major Mughal contribution to the Indian subcontinent was their unique architecture. Many monuments were built by the Muslim emperors, especially Shah Jahan, during the Mughal era, including the UNESCO World Heritage Site Taj Mahal, which is known to be one of the finer examples of Mughal architecture. Other World Heritage Sites include Humayun's tomb, Fatehpur Sikri, the Red Fort, the Agra Fort, and the Lahore Fort. The palaces, tombs, and forts built by the dynasty stand today in Agra, Aurangabad, Delhi, Dhaka, Fatehpur Sikri, Jaipur, Lahore, Kabul, Sheikhupura, and many other cities of India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. With few memories of Central Asia, Babur's descendants absorbed traits and customs of South Asia, and became more or less naturalized. Mughal influence can be seen in cultural contributions such as centralized, imperialistic government which brought together many smaller kingdoms, Persian art and culture amalgamated with Indian art and culture, new trade routes to Arab and Turkic lands, the development of Mughlai cuisine. Mughal architecture found its way into local Indian architecture, most conspicuously in the palaces built by Rajputs and Sikh rulers, landscape and Mughal gardening. Although the land the Mughals once ruled has separated into what is now India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, their influence can still be seen widely today. Tombs of the emperors are spread throughout India, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. The Mughal artistic tradition was eclectic, borrowing from the European Renaissance as well as from Persian and Indian sources. Kumar concludes, the Mughal painters borrowed individual motifs and certain naturalistic effects from Renaissance and Mannerist painting, but their structuring principle was derived from Indian and Persian traditions. Urdu language. Although Persian was the dominant and official language of the empire, the language of the elite later evolved into a form known as Urdu, highly Persianized and also influenced by Arabic and Turkic. The language was written in a type of Perso-Arabic script known as Nastaliq, and with literary conventions and specialized vocabulary being retained from Persian, Arabic and Turkic. The new dialect was eventually given its own name of Urdu. Compared with Hindi, the Urdu language draws more vocabulary from Persian and Arabic and from Turkic languages, where Hindi draws vocabulary from Sanskrit more heavily. Modern Hindi, which uses Sanskrit-based vocabulary along with Urdu loanwords from Persian and Arabic, is mutually intelligible with Urdu. Today, Urdu is the national language of Pakistan and one of the official language in India. Mughal society. The Indian economy remained as prosperous under the Mughals as it was, because of the creation of a road system and a uniform currency, together with the unification of the country. Manufactured goods and peasant-grown cash crops were sold throughout the world. Key industries included shipbuilding, textiles, and steel. The Mughals maintained a small fleet, which merely carried pilgrims to Mecca, imported a few Arab horses in Surat. Dabul in Sindh was mostly autonomous. The Mughals also maintained various river fleets of dhows, which transported soldiers over rivers and fought rebels. Among its admirals were Yahya Saleh, Munawwar Khan, and Muhammad Saleh Kambo. The Mughals also protected the Side Sajanjira. Its sailors were renowned and often voyaged to China and the East African Swahili coast, together with some Mughal subjects carrying out private sector trade. Cities and towns boomed under the Mughals. However, for the most part, they were military and political centers, not manufacturing or commerce centers. Only those guilds which produced goods for the bureaucracy made goods in the towns. Most industry was based in rural areas. The Mughals also built maktabs in every province under their authority, where youth were taught the Quran and Islamic laws such as the Fatwa-e-Alamgir in their indigenous languages. The Bengal region was especially prosperous from the time of its takeover by the Mughals in 1590 to the seizure of control by the British East India Company in 1757. In a system where most wealth was hoarded by the elites, wages were low for manual labor. Slavery was limited largely to household servants. However, some religious cults proudly asserted a high status for manual labor, science and technology. Astronomy. While there appears to have been little concern for theoretical astronomy, Mughal astronomers continued to make advances in observational astronomy and produced nearly 100 Zij treatises. Humayun built a personal observatory near Delhi, The instruments and observational techniques used at the Mughal observatories were mainly derived from the Islamic tradition. In particular, one of the most remarkable astronomical instruments invented in Mughal India is the seamless celestial globe. Alchemy. Sayyid Muhammad had learned much of Mughal alchemy and understood the techniques used to produce various alkali and soaps to produce shampoo. He was also a notable writer who described the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II and the cities of Allahabad and Delhi in rich detail, and also made note of the glories of the Mughal Empire. Sayyid Muhammad was appointed as shampooing surgeon to both Kings George IV and William IV. Technology. Fadhullah Shirazi, a Persian polymath and mechanical engineer who worked for Akbar, developed a volley gun. Akbar was the first to initiate and use metal cylinder rockets known as bands, particularly against war elephants, during the Battle of Sanbal. In the year 1657, the Mughal army used rockets during the siege of Bahadur. Prince Aurangzeb's forces discharged rockets and grenades while scaling the walls. Sidi Marjan was mortally wounded when a rocket struck his large gunpowder depot, and after 27 days of hard fighting, Bahadur was captured by the victorious Mughals. Later, the Mysorean rockets were upgraded versions of Mughal rockets used during the siege of Jinji by the progeny of the Nawab of Arcot. Hyder Ali's father, Fateh Muhammad the Constable at Budikote, commanded a corps consisting of 50 rocketmen for the Nawab of Arcot. Hyder Ali realized the importance of rockets and introduced advanced versions of metal cylinder rockets. These rockets turned fortunes in favor of the Sultanate of Mysore during the Second Anglo-Mysore War, particularly during the Battle of Polalur.